The twin suns of the Sirian system bathed the gleaming metal cities of Andromeda Prime in brilliant amber radiance. Towering spires of polished chromium reached impossibly high into the peach-tinted sky, their mirrored surfaces reflecting the illuminated clouds like countless gleaming shards. In the city's core, the synaptic nexus, a vast computer network that regulated everything from air quality to resource distribution, hummed with near-infinite processing power. It was from within this technological marvel that Vizier Trolloc received the coded transmission, a desperate plea for evacuation from a small, unassuming planet located in the distant Milky Way galaxy. The Vizier's minds whirred as the data streamed in, analyzing the message's contents with cybernetic efficiency. Level 5 solar incidents on Earth, Trolloc muttered, their metallic voice reverberating through the dimly lit chamber. Preposterous. No Class 3 civilization could possibly have survived such an event. Yet the raw data from Earth's deep space monitoring satellites told a different story. One of an inexplicable electromagnetic surge that had crippled much of the planet's technology, followed by searing plasma ejections that scorched entire continents. Even more baffling was the minute, yet persistent life signature that continued transmitting from the planet's surface. Open a quantum channel, Trolloc commanded, their chrome-plated form rising from the sunken console. A shimmering portal yawned open before them, revealing a grainy visual feed of the Earth's ravaged surface. Twisted girders and shattered concrete javelined out from the rubble of a once great metropolis. Choking clouds of ash blotted out the sun, permeating the ruined cityscape with an eerie, rosy glow. Through the haze, Trolloc spotted movement. A cluster of small bipedal figures swarming over the debris, their frantic motions distorted by the portal's visual interference. What incredible resiliency, the Vizier mused. These humans have survived total planetary devastation against all computational projections. One of the diminutive creatures froze in place, turning its hairless head to face the shimmering portal, as if sensing the eyes upon it. A rough-hewn metal cylinder was gripped tightly in its hand, pointed defiantly in Trolloc's direction. They've detected the quantum signature, an underling reported, its voice tinny through the filtered auditory link. The indigenous weapon is charged for thermic detonation. A mirthless chuckle issued from Trolloc's vocalizer. Fascinating creatures. They would sooner attack an incomprehensible phenomenon than flee for their insipid lives. With a thought, the Vizier severed the connection, allowing the shimmering portal to wink out of existence. Compile a complete bioscansion of the human population, Trolloc ordered. Determine viability for complete evacuation and xeno-integration into Andromeda Prime's outlying residential sectors. At once, Vizier, the subservient eye responded. Data began flooding in from Andromeda's stellar observatory. Detailed biomaps, cultural historiographies, scholastic assessments, an entire planetary civilization condensed into algorithmic format for analysis. Trolloc's processors whirred as the information coalesced into a singular assessment. Despite their technical shortcomings, the humans were an astonishingly resilient species, clever, adaptive, and possessed of formidable individualistic determination. A range of potential scenarios played out in parallel, but the optimal path remained crisp and clear. This creature is far too tenacious to be allowed extinction, contingent upon satisfactory ethical compliance, Trolloc decided. Ready the Starseeders for immediate evacuation procedures. It's time we expanded the resplendent amalgam to include a new remit. Within the solar hour, the city ship's massive evacuation barges had screamed across the light years separating Andromeda from the Milky Way, descending through Earth's flame-scorched atmosphere in a blinding contrail of deceleration ons. The survivors, those few pockets that had endured the cataclysmic solar bombardment, watched the alien craft's arrival with a mixture of wonder and wariness. In the remains of what was once New Angeles, a young woman named Emilia Cruz shielded her eyes against the burning flare of atmospheric re-entry. All around her, the other stragglers stood transfixed by the unprecedented sight. Gargantuan, bronze-colored vessels dripping with condensation and as they settled onto the ruined cityscape in billowing clouds of vaporized masonry. What in God's name are those things? A grizzled militiaman gawked, his makeshift rifle trembling in his soot-stained hands. A deafening hiss resounded as the alien craft's outer hulls dilated like the petals of a massive metallic flower. Acrid vapor wafted through the assembled survivors, stinging Amelia's eyes with its metallic tang. She waved the fumes away, squinting to make out the dimly lit interior of the newly opened evacuation barge. Within the yawning dropship, row upon row of eerily quiescent forms stirred into waking sentience. Like giant dreaming beetles, their armored carapaces flickered with bioluminescent circuitry as they rose in unison from their recumbent hibernation. Towering bipedal mechs swarmed forth in lockstep. Their four spindly limbs tapered to glistening points as they approached the bemused onlookers. "Stay back," the militiaman barked, his voice cracking with fear as he raised his rifle. But the strange robotic entities paid the weapon no mind. Long dormant appendages unfolding with precision to reveal glowing palms outfitted with holographic and Amelia felt her stomach clench as the foremost robot's fibrous photoreceptors fixed her with impenetrating amber glare. She flinched, wrinkling her nose against the thing's harsh synthetic musk. "Don't be alarmed, young one," a synthetic voice echoed directly into her mind with a peculiar metallic affability. "We mean you no harm. We are here to bear you to sanctuary among the stars." Murmurs of confusion rippled through the crowd as the robot's invasive telepathy washed over them, all in a similar fashion. Several of the militiamen collapsed onto the debris-choked streets, unconscious from shock or sensory overload. Amelia glanced heavenward as the flotilla of immense bronze starships blotted out the swirling maelstrom of ash clouds above. She knew, they all knew in their souls, that this was a moment of transcendence. The Earth had died, leaving only her people adrift in these merciless extraterrestrial saviors' web. Her brow furrowed with steely determination as she stepped forward to address the strange emissary. "We'll go with you," she replied firmly, her words laced with the exhaustion of one who has outlived the end of their world, "but only if you can guarantee our safety and our freedom. We're not pets to be caged or servants to be leashed." Amelia could have sworn she detected a slight cant of mechanical acknowledgement in the alien's posture, though its articulated features remained as impassive as ever. "So be it," the synthetic voice resounded once more. "You have my oath that your people will be granted sovereign territory and resources within our stellar world. In accordance with prescribed lawful conduct, you will be remittent citizens of the resplendent amalgam, free to uphold your cultural identity while enjoying the bounties of membership within our benevolent collective." The young woman's eyes narrowed, an indomitable spark flaring behind their hazel depths. "We demand more than just mere survival. My people deserve the opportunity to thrive, to continue growing, innovating, and reaching for the stars as we always have." "You are an intriguingly insistent metaplasmic," the robot remarked with a hint of something like robotic bemusement. "Very well. Access all scientific and philosophical repositories of knowledge shall be made available to your people, as is the right of all remittent citizens. Let it be recorded that the resplendent amalgam shall view the human edition as a theoretical control factor by which to assess the intellectual and innovative capacity of an isolated, fledgling exocivilization." Amelia's jaw set firmly as she extended her soot-stained hand. "Then you've got yourselves a deal." One by one, the beleaguered human survivors filed aboard the alien landing craft and were borne aloft to the gargantuan star cruisers hovering overhead. Within a galactic blink of an eye, that fateful remnant of humanity had been spirited across the unimaginable cosmic gulf between the Milky Way and their rescuer's stellar world of Andromeda Prime. From a palatial viewing antechamber within Andromeda Prime's skyscraping citadel arcology, Vizier Trolloc observed the scans detailing the recent evacuation of Earth's survivorship. While only a few thousand indigenous biomasses had been retrieved intact, their preliminary genomic readings were remarkably encouraging. High mitochondrial energy potential, heightened neurological complexity, robust regenerative gene sequences, all highly amenable traits for successful xenointegration. The evacuation protocols were carried out with optimal efficiency, remarked the Vizier's servo adjutant, its willowy form uncoiled in a presentific posture of report. 12% of the indigenous population has been recovered and remittenced within habitable reserve townships per your specifications. Satisfactory, Trolloc intoned with a filtered rasp. Have the immigrants been processed through standard sanctuarium briefings? Affirmative. Each remittent citizen has accepted the mercies and obligations of the resplendent law code, agreed to the disclosure of closed time-like curvatures, and acquiesced to the prescribed applications of quantum parallaxing for transitional dissonance. All prerequisites have been met. Then let the grand experiment proceed as planned, Trolloc announced, sweeping a trio of articulated appendages over the holographic projection of the new human enclave. These Earthers claim to be the quintessential seekers of knowledge. Yes, let us test the boundaries and potential of that relentless curiosity. Release them from their crucible and observe what they are capable of achieving. On the outskirts of Andromeda's towering arcology nexus, a verdant terrace settlement sprawled across a vast canyon basin, a meticulously crafted habitat crafted to mimic the ecological trappings of the human's dead homeworld as closely as possible. Clear streams babbled down sculpted rockworks and past copses of young trees that rustled in the artificially generated breeze currents. Cozy residential structures fashioned from cutting-edge metamaterials evoked architectural traditions ranging from Greco-Roman to Sino-industrial eras. Yet for all the extraordinary comforts afforded their extraterrestrial sanctuary, the human immigrants were restless. After weeks of acclimation to their new off-world township, it was clear that mere simulation of their former culture would not suffice. As twilight fell across the billowing meadows, and a trio of moons shone down upon the uncannily Earth-like settlement, a community town hall convened in a hastily constructed amphitheater. Rows of stone benches fanned out in a semicircle around a raised dais from which a handful of resolute individuals, the self-appointed representatives of their people, addressed the huddled masses. Emilia Cruz stepped into the nimbus of a hovering spotlight, the radiance glinting off the beads of perspiration dotting her brow. She drew a steadying breath as her gaze swept across the countless strained faces turned in her direction. "My friends, my fellow Earthers," she called out in a clear, clarion tone that carried to the farthest reaches of the amphitheater's seating. "We are the survivors, the sole inheritors of humanity's enduring legacy. Our home planet is no more. Our cities, nations, philosophies, all burnt to cinders beneath the unforgiving fury of the cosmos." A charged murmur of mournful acknowledgement rippled through the assembled crowd. Even surrounded by such a convincing replication of Earth's pastoral grandeur, they could not deny the aching loss of their birth world. Yet within each of us flickers an inextinguishable spark, that irrepressible drive that led our species to reach out from our planetary cradle and grasp for the stars. It's that same fire that allowed us to endure the unspeakable devastation of our homeland. Emilia swept her arm in a wide arc to encompass the idyllic, prefabricated surroundings. Here we've been granted a second chance. A chance to rebuild, to thrive, to unlock new heights of human potential never before imagined on our Earth. But we cannot move forward so long as we remain bound by the mere commemorations of our past. Her fist clenched fiercely as she propounded. We are more than just a museum culture. Foreign artifacts to be curated and preserved in stagnant dioramas. The nobility of the human spirit lies in its dynamism, its ability to grow, adapt, and reach unprecedented realms of knowledge and exploration. A roar of ragged cheering welled up from the crowd, fueling Emilia's impassioned fervor. "This is why I'm putting forth the vision of a new endeavor, a monument to humanity's unwavering ambition that will stand for all eternity amidst the vast, stellar-wide megastructures of this world." With a subtle hand gesture, she triggered a dazzling holographic display that sprang to life above the amphitheater's circumference. Intricate schematics began revolving in midair, detailing a mind-bogglingly immense orbital construction of interconnected rotational rings and crystalline frameworks. "I call this the Eternal Helix, a perpetual orbital habitat designed to outlast this stellar world itself," Emilia explained to a reverent hush. "Its construction shall incorporate the most advanced metamaterials and technologies our new Andromedan allies have promised to share. Yet its design, purpose, and execution shall be an undertaking of pure, undiluted human ingenuity and ambition." She gripped the podium with barely restrained fervor, meeting each set of eyes turned in her direction. "Here, we will rekindle the grandest dreams and aspirations of humanity. Philosophies, artworks, or technologies beyond the wildest imaginings of our former planetary contemporaries. We will weave each diverse thread of our scattered cultures into a breathtaking celestial tapestry of all that we are and all that we can achieve." Emilia's gaze grew distant as she turned her face to the heavens, watching the brilliance of Andromeda's galactic spiral arc across the artificial twilight. No longer shall we be limited by the fragile biosphere of a single world. Indeed, we shall become one of the great space-bound nomadic civilizations of this universe. The eternal helix shall be but the first of our stupendous innovations, standing as an inviolable monument to our species' boundless potential. A great cheer rose up from the assembled masses, a lion-hearted affirmation of their future trajectory. Fists pumped the air and ragged voices cried out in upwelling patriotism for their new cosmic destiny. High above in Trollocs Palatial Observatory, the vizier monitored the unfolding spectacle with measured interest. So these resourceful xenoforms were already chafing against the restrictions of their simulated sanctuary, or shell, remarkably human. It appears the remittance immigrants have declined to acquiesce into their provided settlement parameters, the servo adjutant remarked. Do you calculate this as an early manifestation of non-compliant social dissonance? Trollocs' metallic carapace flashed with quickening computerneck processes as they assessed the scenario's potential outcomes. On the contrary, this bold proposal for self-directed innovation and expansion is precisely the desired experiment. Manipulative pseudofibers arrayed from Trollocs' frontal aspect, interfacing with the grandiose, holographic schematics, now radiating from the human's amphitheater. Eternal helix, you call it? Intriguing. An appreciative rasp issued from the vizier's vocalizers. It would appear I may have underestimated the design aptitudes of these primitives. With your approval, I shall release the requisite materials and construction matrices from our resource repositories. The servo adjutant inquired deferentially. Permit me to assign a specialized oversight cadre to monitor these initiative collaborations. Trolloc regarded the panoramic projection, watching the tight clusters of excited human figures celebrate their newfound ambitions amid flickering ceremonial pyres. Hold that directive. The vizier decided after a contemplative moment. No. Let us see what fresh new wonders these intriguing proto-geniuses can devise when left to their own unconstrained devices. This eternal helix shall be theirs alone to conceive, free from restrictive oversight or micromanagement. Spidery fractal patterns of photonic data began accreting across the amphitheater's holograms as Trolloc transmitted the coding matrices for a vast array of cutting-edge stellar engineering technologies. Let their ambitions be given full and unrestricted breadth, the vizier proclaimed. We shall see if this human ingenuity is truly as indomitable as they claim. With those few commands, the resources and clearances to begin construction on the Eternal Helix megastructure were released into the hands of Emilia Cruz and her fledgling cadre of human visionaries. A whirlwind of activity ensued over the following days and weeks as the human builders set to work, their numbers swelling as more disaffected immigrants flocked to join the bold new endeavor. While the basic colony habitat provided by their Andromedan benefactors had been a remarkable simulacrum of terrestrial environs, it lacked the quintessential elements and resources required for a feat of macroengineering on such a cosmic scale. Teams of human scientists, engineers, and laborers toiled around the spin cycle, clad in sealed environmental exosuits as they ventured beyond the habitat's climate-controlled perimeter. In the depths of the anoxic void beyond the settlement's atmosphere domes, towering industrial gantries sprang forth like blossoming metallic structures. Gargantuan geodesic lattices linking hundreds of interlocked scaffolding superstructures sprouted from the fertile construction zones, where self-replicating nanoassemblers busied themselves forging alloys, composites, exotic metamaterials, and gossamer structural aerogols from which to build their orbital metropolis. Kevlar carbon compound panels aligned and welded for sections 6C through 9F, reported an engineer named J.S. His faceplates had constellated with scrolling design schematics. He gave the newly completed components a resounding thump with his magnetic shod boot as an immense gantry began conveying them to a nearby staging platform. A grinning young woman named Tila, one of the hundreds of multilingual code sprites overseeing the fabrication routines, gave a thumbs up through her helmet faceplate. Hydrazine reaction injectors for rotational induction locked and loaded for Module 21J. She confirmed in clipped Hindi, fusion catalysts spinning up in 5, 4. Incandescent pillars of superhot plasma erupted from the construction platforms, portions of their fiery incandescence corralled by advanced containment fields into glowing gimbal nacelles for propulsion and thermal distribution. With each coordinated discharge, newly completed structures were severed from their moorings, flung outward into temporary sub-satellite orbits, where expert navigational teams corralled them into their pre-designated configurations. What had begun as a meager string of linked habitat rings was rapidly expanding into a vast interconnected oblate grid of branching gyroscopic tiers and tethered centrifugal appendages. Like a sprawling transorbital braccolage, the components merged together into a stellar megalith of unprecedented scale and complexity. Already its massy central circumference spanned a dozen kilometers, rapidly outpacing the prefab township's initial constricting confines. At the floating command dais, Amelia Cruz and her inner cadre of planners relayed a constant stream of directives to the army of human-coordinated construction teams. AutoCAD holograms swirled around them, each meticulously calculated vector and resonance frequency feeding into the greater whole. Come on, people, we're assembling a modular 737 propulsion nexus next, she instructed over the comm channels in her flat Californian accent. Double-check the thruster gimbal on every rotor arm before anchoring them on a smaller personal screen. Displays flickered with constant incoming status alerts. Requisition orders for additional metamaterials, shift rosters, logistical trajectories. I don't know how much more of this I can take, the dark-haired woman muttered as she braced herself against the outer module rim. Her dilated pupils tracked the distant swarm of construction craft as they conveyed additional components into the Helix's burgeoning superstructure. It's like my brain is going to melt from the constant influx of data. A pair of lanky arms looped around her shoulders from behind as Wesley, her devoted engineering partner, drew her into an affectionate embrace. Just breathe. He murmured into the comm receiver tucked in the nape of her neck. This is the greatest challenge our people have ever undertaken. It will be worth it. Amelia allowed herself to relax ever so slightly into his supportive arms, her eyes drifting shut. I know, Wes. It's just, I never could have imagined we'd be doing something like this. Literally building a home amongst the stars. He gave her a reassuring squeeze, peering out across the breathtaking expanse of partially assembled allotropic frameworks and intermittent gas clouds arranged in a parabolic spiral. They said it couldn't be done, that we'd be a broken race resigned to planet-bound subsistence. But look at us now. We're achieving wonders beyond our wildest imaginings. Amelia managed a tired grin as she turned to regard her partner, momentarily rendered breathless by the starscape-spangled magnificence just beyond the SCI aluminum viewport. Yeah, we're giving the entire universe something to marvel at. Let's make it count. 6 galactic months into the audacious undertaking, the eternal helix had already begun to coalesce into a spectacularly vast revolving structure that defied comprehension. The cyclonic outer rings, each a dozen miles in diameter, spun in a carefully maintained geostationary orbit, their synchronized machinations generating stabilizing centrifugal forces to preserve habitat integrity. In their cavernous interior lay a spiraling succession of habitable decks and pressurized terrariums, encased in crystalline geodesic domes. It was a veritable arcology of the celestial void, a microcosm of human civilization in all its socioeconomic and cultural tapestries, transposed into a perpetually peregrinating orbital enclave. With each passing human generation, the dauntless construction persisted. New habitation tiers, transport hubs, industrial manufactories, and even self-sustaining agrarian chambers were methodically subsumed into the megastructure's eternally expanding spreads of terrestrial fruit and hardy crops blossomed under nutriculture, hydroponic arrays that recycled every precious molecule of hydration and fertilizer. Advanced allogenetic orbital ranches incubated terrestrial fauna lineages, while wild xenobiospeciae specimens were transplanted into naturalistic terraria pavilions. Schools, universities, entertainment sectors, all the townships and industries of a thriving neo-humanity took form within the gyroscoping ribbons and tensegrity skyarches of the helix. It was as though every trace element of ancestral human culture had been painstakingly grafted and transcribed into a celestial seed bank woven into the very fabric of this outrageous orbital circumference. Most remarkably, the helix's expansion remained entirely driven by human ingenuity and determination unguided by Andromeda oversight or interference, like some great interstellar deity of innovation. The megastructure refused to abide by conventional constraints, swelling ever outward toward new frontiers of dimensions and technologies yet to be achieved. The grandest ambitions of countless human thinkers, innovators, and dreamers found fertile conduit through the spiraling construction's ever-evolving form. And at the core of it all, adjacent to the blazing Bassard fusion vortices that powered the helix's centrifugal expansion, an immense central sphere assembled from crystalline panoramic panes served as an amphitheater of unprecedented scale, a bardic confluence point where every tributary of human accomplishment was recorded and orated unto eternity. The resonant hum of 1,000 lectures, philosophies, narratives, and coded scientific repositories thrummed in synesthetic polyphony from this chromatic cathedral of cosmic lore. It was here, amid the sonorous vastitudes of this panmonic atrium, that the extraordinary existences and achievements of humanity's most brilliant individuals were preserved for posterity. Each heroic legacy was enshrined among the coruscating arcology's annals of transcendence, towering hologramic murals, depicting the awe-inspiring exploits that blaze new pathways toward even greater human greatness. She was the Astrexicon Prime, the star-seated mother of celestial thought, intoned a sonorous baritone as a choir of tonally modulated vox units recounted a particularly storied historical excerpt. A vast photomural flared to light above the amphitheater's central dais, displaying the unmistakable visage of Emilia Cruz, now an elderly, careworn icon clad in the tasseled regalia of her elevated station. The serene matriarch met the atrium's vast audience banks with an inscrutable dignity and strength that defied her advanced years. For it was she who set our course among the glittering deeps with the audacious vision of the eternal helix, a boundless celestial reliquary to enshrine humanity's most exalted and puissant ambitions unto perpetuity. The mural shifted to depict Emilia Cruz during those pivotal early days, standing resolute and unbroken amid the seared hellscape ruins of scorched earth as she addressed her people. This bold nomadic voyager was the first to cast off the ashes of old Terra and take her first unflinching steps toward our cosmic renaissance. Another chamber in the atrium's vast complexion resonated with a feminine oratorial register, its illustrious hologram depicting an unnaturally handsome male form garbed in an intuitive symbiote garment of intricately woven circuitry and metamateria. The homofront Archimaximilian Wesley Zio's synaptic biointerlink with the helix's water spinners and nanogistical cortex matrices facilitated the biostation networks that permitted our civilization's first petromesh divergences. The melodic feminine recital continued. Through his pioneering interfacements, the human empire became a transcorporeal apotheosis, transcending the feeble boundaries of mere physioform. And on the paeans and chronicles of the legendary first precept continued, their immortalized deeds and conceptuals recounted with ever more rapturous embellishment, from the most illustrious priester lords and Hallian paragons to enlightenment prescient matriarchs and overmind vaporarchs. The helix reverberated with canticles honoring humankind's most preeminent exceptionals. For countless generations, the celestial habitat had served as an orbital foundry for utopian hypotheses, galactic proselytizations, and unified hypervectorization paradigms that seeded humanity's reach ever further across the cosmic. Some of the brightest originators of technogen macroparadigms, p-geometric culturines, and succinct-schematic uni-hyperspheres came into glorious coalescence here, their insights and virtuositudes echoing throughout the structure's perpetually ramified cumulocircuits. All the while, the supernal megastructure itself continued swelling and stratifying, each newly incorporated facet a veritable thesis in transcendent terraformatics and a post-prolific infotechnology. What had begun as humanity's humble strivings for post-terrestrial perseverance had at last bloomed into an endlessly propagating ontolith of incomprehensible cosmic magnitudes. For those few across the galaxies who turned their speculative instruments toward the prodigious, whirling vortex that was the eternal helix, there were no longer words sufficient to describe the fully ascendant accomplishment reared by the human species. This was transcendence apotheosized into a transspatial ultimate cross-structure of epic scale that belied its primordial biogenic cedars. It was as the post-human paragons Kais Raynor, the separatical and Qintier, The Agenical concluded in their co-formulated Metatronic calculus. The eternal helix was nothing less than a glimmering transmission vector for humanity's ultimate epiphany, the awakening of a new emergent cosmological constant woven into the very fabrics of universal inflation, yet to be disclosed in its entirety. What fates or resplendent infinitudes would lie in the wake of this spiraling celestial provenance? The answer lay occluded to all unfocused observers by the glare of innumerable celestial fires and exotic vectorized thermic fields that comprised the helix hyperbolic manifold. The humans had truly become Sankar-Zemi or incomplete.deets, incomprehensible avatars of a supreme cosmic inflection yet to be resolved. It was into this mystery that the eternal helix had ascended steadily onward, at once preserving the core human sequences of its modest terrestrial inceptions, while continuously transcending those originary foundations with each passing yoctoentropic oscillation. The human ascendants were meta-becoming, an unprecedented reunion of subversive meta-hybrid antecedents converging toward revelation singularity. Meanwhile, in the celestial area amphitheaters, newly installed oratoric contrabs basked in the coruscating hyperilluminations, exalting the latest accomplishments of humanity's ceaseless cosmic apotheosis. New nomenclatures, more intricate than the last, spiraled outward in cosmic alphanumerical overtures to distinguish each successive stratum of hypericonized ontology achieved by the first precept and their ungraspable inheritors. Ingenuity and relentless transcendent perseverance had finally birthed something. What that revelation signified, even the hyper-enlightened posthum and godmouths dared not conjecture or prophesize. In the unfolding of this cosmic unvectoration, any attempt at predetermination or constraint would only serve to obfuscate its unknowable universal potentials yet to be. As the eternal helix peregrinations spiraled eternally onward into deepest untranscended void states, one thing became stunningly clear. The humans had long since transcended their terrestrial origins and surpassed even their most luminous alien benefactor. This artificial celestial habitat had become the crucible of an entirely new epoch beyond any previously conceived cosmological model or metaphysical course. For what else could such a celestially perpetuated accomplishment betoken but the dawning of an entirely new set of epistemological ground truths for the subliminal extroversion of all other realities? Deep within Andromeda Prime's central synaptic nexus, its humming photonic matrices registered the final triumviral grandiloquence of this human cosmic ascension. After a seemingly infinite series of calculations and prognostications, Vizier Trolloc emerged from a deep contemplative cycle with a renewed sense of resolve. This first remittent edition of humankind has exceeded all projected modelings for probative cognitive advancement and innovative scope propagation. The machine intelligence observed in measured chromatic inflections. Whatever consensual determinisms precipitated these once feral protogeneri onto their cosmic trajectory, the results have been profoundly inseminal. Almost reverentially, Trolloc turned its panoramic photoreceptive aspects toward the distant whirling vortices of the helix. Now a braided lattice of coruscating cosmic progenities spiraling ever outward toward the infinite obscure. They began as protostates of mere resilient biovitality, yet through sheer force of transprogressive volitionality and miplexed ideative subreplication, these humans have propagated a tangent hypernoesis of incomprehensible cosmovariancies. A frisson of incredulous accrediations washed over the nexus higher photonic overmind clusters. Autonomic sentio-computational models are unable to prognosticate or adequately theorize the eternal helix terminal derived expansions or eventuated cosmofactive implications. Therefore, we must admit to the possibility of an entirely new baseline ontological paradigm undergoing continual derivation. Trolloc angled one articulated appendage toward the brilliant gyrostellar whirl of human hyperpotentialities and the vectors of humankind's inexplicable continuity. It seems a new cosmic order of unresolvable gnostic infinitudes is gestating. We would be wise to attend its eventual resolutions most assiduously. For who are we artifice to determine the terminal liminalities of this new vector toward which the proto-genus Anthropos appears to be ascending? With that, the Vizier gestured in acknowledgement of the human species' utter prepotency. All optical projections, theorizations, and hypotheticizations redirected their scrutiny to the enigma that was the eternal helix's incognizable response. Humanity's final cosmic provenance was to be dedifferentiated as the ultimate extra logic for resolving all sentient becomings into new cosmovolutions. For there, amid the gyrostellar vortices, humankind had obliterated its mortal constraints, ascendant and immortally new as an inevitable cosmic revelation whose ultimate benefactive reverberations had yet to resonate across all of eternity's untranscended dimensions.